need, of course, are vitamins, minerals. We hear a lot about that. Many of us take a multivitamin because we think we need that, right? And sometimes we do. Sometimes we are deficient in what we're eating, not getting enough. Or more importantly, you might be eating it, but maybe your body's not absorbing it. And this is the thing I want you to start being aware of as we age and we start to change. Sometimes our bodies don't absorb the way they should. Sometimes our stomach is not doing what it needs to be doing to absorb some of the vitamins and the nutrients that come in our food. So you have to kind of pay attention to that. B12 is one of those. Okay, it really starts in your stomach to really have your body absorb it. Some stuff has to happen. And as we age, that's one of the ones that we should be tested for to make sure you're getting enough. And it's a simple blood test that you can have your doctor do. So I've listed, there's 13 essential vitamins that we need. Really, all whole foods have them. So you don't need to be like freaked out you're not getting them. If you're eating a really diverse diet, and what does that mean? Eat a rainbow. Make sure there's a lot of colors in it, okay? A lot of different textures and things. You're going to be getting what you need, okay? And fiber. Fiber is one of the nutrients we super need. Now, when you're eating a lot of, meat and dairy and eggs, which all taste delicious, and there's a place for all of that, you're not getting any fiber. Zero fiber, okay? So where do we get that? Well, you're like, oh, I could take a pill, right? Of course you could. But more importantly, what tastes better than that is whole foods. All those fruits and veggies and beans and lentils and peas and nuts and seeds, all of those things, not only do they have all the vitamins and minerals you need, okay, they also have a lot of fiber in them and a lot of water, okay, and they fill you up and they fuel your body really well. So when I was talking about those nutrients, oh, thank you. Thanks, Sean. When I was talking about those nutrients, let's go back to that for a second. I had fiber on there. What I didn't have on there is the macronutrients of protein and carbohydrates and healthy fats and water. Those are all really necessary, just like a plant. You need air and water and sun. We need it too, but we actually need some nutrients as well. So that's what we have to eat. So be aware of that. People are really worried about getting enough protein, okay? But when you're choosing your protein source, and you do need, as we age, we do need a little bit more, okay? But where you're getting it is really important, okay? Where that's coming from. Because sometimes the protein sources we choose bring a lot of things we don't want. So when you're making your choices, I want you to be really thinking about what else is this bringing with it? Is it stuff I want or stuff I don't want? So let me give you an example. And I don't want to beat up on meat, but this is a really good example for this. Because when you choose, say, chicken's really popular, all right? But what does it bring with it? Yeah, it has protein that we all want, and it tastes good, okay, to a lot of people. But what it also brings with it is a lot of saturated fat. It brings a lot of, depending on how it's raised, some antibiotics in there. It brings a lot of salt because they kind of put salt into it, okay? So, you're thinking you're making a really healthy choice of choosing chicken because I want my protein, but see what you're also bringing with it. Okay, this is what I want you to start being really aware and just being mindful. Now, I'm not telling you can't eat that. I'm just telling you to be aware of what you're choosing. Now, how could we make that actually better? Well, we could use maybe a little less of the chicken and make sure maybe it's kind of a organically free-range grown type thing, and we can add some beans with it. All right, so now you have a protein source of beans that have zero saturated fat. They're full of fiber. Remember, your chicken doesn't have any fiber, okay? And so you have a much better option. But you're getting the same thing you strove to get. You were trying to get protein, but you got some stuff you didn't want. And with the beans, you're getting a lot of stuff that you do want. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, does everybody at home get that? Yeah, I see everybody shaking their heads. Awesome. Okay, so that's the protein. Carbohydrates, they're not the enemy. Okay, everybody's like, oh, I can't eat any carbs. Well, fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates. And we want those. So when you think of carbs, you're mainly thinking about the pastas and the breads, right? But there is a place for those. A lot of our grains bring a lot of B vitamins with it. And so but just be careful of what you're choosing. Be choosing more of the whole grains. Okay, whole grains. If you can eat gluten, lean into your whole wheat, okay? If you can't eat gluten, and some of us cannot, lean into your quinoa or your brown rice. There's a lot of options for you, okay? So I want you to realize there's room for all foods, but I want you to also be really, what's the word, sort of stingy about what you're adding into your diet. Everything has to earn its spot, not only in your pantry, but on your plate. Okay, so it all should really have a role to play, okay, in keeping you well. So, let's talk about supplements for a minute. People love them. There's a big, big business with supplements, okay, and there's a role for them, especially if you're deficient. I think people take supplements like vitamins and different things because they might be taking some medications that deplete certain things. Let me give you an example. Metformin, for people that have diabetes, it depletes your B12. So you should be paying attention to whether or not you have enough. All right, and so you might need a supplement to help you with that, okay? Especially as we age. In fact, right now, over the age of 50, they recommend that a lot of people should supplement with a supplement, an actually little pill, okay? But you can always get tested for that. Vitamin D is another one. We don't absorb it as well as we age. What happens is we start being inside more, okay? We start wearing our sunscreen, so we don't want to develop skin cancer, and we cover up. So we're not getting, because the sun is the best source of vitamin D, all right? But yet we're just not out enough. And then you have to realize, and whatever we're getting, is it actually being absorbable? Okay, so there's a lot of low vitamin D in our society, and so that's something else you should maybe consider supplementing with. Omega-3s. Omega-3, I like to recommend getting it from an algae source rather than a fish source. So omega-3s is the fish oils that everybody was taking for a while, right? They taste horrible, they smell horrible, you burp up fish tasting stuff, all right? It's awful. But there is a benefit to omega-3s. They're often recommended for people that have heart issues. But there's a lot of research around now how it's really good for your brain too. So if you're going to supplement with that, do an algae-based source. Where do you think the fish get their omega-3s? You got it. They get it from the algae. So let's cut out the middle fish, okay? Let's just go for the source and really get it from the source. And so just know that it's really, those are the three things that you might consider taking if you're going to take a supplement. Everything else, you really want to get from your diet if you possibly can, all right? The omega-3s, it's really more about a ratio of omega-3 versus omega-6. It's a ratio that you want to look at. And so we're really high in omega-6s. That's why we're told to eat more omega-3s, okay? But what if we lowered our omega-6 consumption? We wouldn't need as much omega-3s to come into our diet because then the ratio is back in range. And omega-6s come from a lot of the oils we use, a lot of the oils in the packaged foods, okay? And so, so if you bring those down and then you add in, chia seeds or flax seeds into your oatmeal or some of these food items that have walnuts or great omegas in them, you can get it from a natural source and you don't need to actually take the supplement. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so I want you to start realizing that the supplements we take, they came from an original food source. So maybe you just start adding that food into your diet because it not only tastes good, all right, and it's from the real source, but sometimes it's hard to get enough. And so especially if our appetites drop or we don't know what to add, and so if you're low, you should get tested and see, okay? But really, your whole foods are your best option. The beans, the legumes, okay, beans, lentils, peas, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains. Those are the ticket. Okay, so let's talk about staying well and living well. There's a few things that you can start doing right now, starting today, all right? You've already eaten probably your breakfast and lunch, maybe. You still have this is the great thing about eating. It's like if you don't do great the first meal, you have another meal to try it out, okay? And then you have another meal to try it out. So you can keep getting better a little at a time, okay? And so it's like you might say, I just did terrible. You don't have to throw away the whole day. you can actually do better the next time. That's the beautiful thing. Okay, and so I challenge you to do that. It's like, okay, this plate, how can I make it more colorful? How can I make it have more of the nutrients I want in it, okay? And so you can really start with starting to reduce or eliminate the foods that have the saturated fats in them. Saturated fats aren't good for our heart. They're not good for our insulin resistance with diabetes. They're just not really that great for us, okay? And I know people are like, oh, but I eat olive oil. Well, I know people love their olive oil, but there's still 60% saturated fat in that. So you're still getting it somewhere. And that's okay. If that's where you want to choose to get it, that's great. But just realize that you're probably getting it in other sources as well. And we really want to keep that amount down. Probably, I think the American Heart Association recommends no more than 13 grams of saturated fat every day. So how much is that? Grams is really hard, right? It's about a hamburger patty, okay? In one day, that's all you get if you're trying to stay within those recommendations. So when you're looking at your label, kind of look at the back and say, okay, let me just strive to not being over 2 grams per serving of saturated fat. That's a really good thing to look at, okay? And if you are choosing something that maybe it says plant-based on the outside, you're like, oh, I'm doing something really healthy for myself, flip it over and read the ingredients label, okay? It might have saturated fat in it, because they're using coconut. Coconut's really, really high in saturated fat. So just don't let them trick you, okay? Don't let them trick you with the front. You always gotta flip it over and read the back. That's where the information really happens, okay? So read your labels. So really start lessening those saturated fats in your diet. If you choose to eat them, let's say you're gonna eat, a piece of meat or some chicken or some fish, add a bunch of vegetables with it. Okay, add a bunch of veggies with it. It should be almost use it as a condiment. You should have a little bit and then a whole bunch of vegetables and grains and add those beans in there, okay? Added sugars, another big deal, okay? Now I'm not talking about sugars in fruits, dried fruits, but if you start reading your labels, you'll realize this was a shocker for me. I used to put craisins. I used to love those little dried cranberries into my oatmeal. And then I flipped over because I thought, oh, they're dried fruit. They're awesome, right? So I flipped over the label and read the label one day, and I was cooking my oatmeal. And I almost fell off my chair. I said, there's like 4 teaspoons of sugar in a serving because they add sugar into them, okay? So something that was really nutritious, such as a cranberry, they're very tart, they add sugar into. So what I want you to start checking on your label, start checking, the added sugars. The natural sugars we can let go. It's the added sugars, and that's how people start sneaking into your diet. When I work with my clients, that's one of the first things I have them start doing, because everybody tells me, I don't eat much sugar. And then, because they don't drink sodas, which is awesome, okay? But when they start reading their labels, they start realizing, oh, I do eat more sugar than I think, because it's sneaking in. It's sneaking in ways that you don't realize that. So I really want you to be aware of that, okay? The other thing is salt. Salt is everywhere. If you open a package, there's salt in it. If you open a can, and I use canned beans all the time because they're super convenient. To cook beans takes some time. But I get the low or no salt ones, okay? And if I can't get those, I try to rinse them, okay? Because salt is in everything, and it's just not great for us. It's just not. And so the recommendation is about 2,300 milligrams a day, okay? That's about a teaspoon of salt a day. Now, you're thinking, oh, I don't use a teaspoon when I salt things, but if you've opened a package or you've eaten out or any of those things, you're getting more salt than you think, okay? So, and if you have any heart issues or high blood pressure, that number is even lower. It's 1,500 milligrams, okay? So be really aware of that. It's not good for us. It causes so many issues, and yet it's one of those things that sneak into our diet again. These 3 things are very sneaky. They sneak in when we don't see them coming in. That's why I want you just to be mindful of where it's coming from. Not that you can never use it, but I want you to be careful and deliberate about where you're using these things, okay? So how about some tips for aging well? Well, I said it earlier, eat colorful foods, okay, and mix it up. There's a lot of talk, and I do a lot of work in gut health, okay? And so we have this great, what we call microbiome in our body. And it's all of what's going on in our gut. And it drives so much of what we do. It affects our energy, it affects our mood, it affects our sleep, it affects our weight. Okay, all of these things we've learned that are driven by all these little microbes in our gut. Okay, and what do they like to eat? Fiber, all right? The ones that we want in our gut, they live off of eating fiber foods, okay? The ones we don't want in our gut, what do they live off of? Salt, sugar, and fat, okay? So when I work with clients, I see all the time, we'll do a little testing, and we see this unbalanced in their microbiome of the good versus the bad microbes, okay? And then it's no wonder they're having some health issues go on with them. And that might even look like how well their system's working. Okay, so mixing it up, diversity in our diet is really, really important. And so it's like, well, what does that mean, Robin? Well, it means that you're mixing up your vegetables, you're mixing up your grains, you're mixing up the types of beans you're using. I'm doing a challenge with my clients this month about trying to get 30 different fruits, vegetables, and beans, nuts, and seeds into their weekly diet. Okay, that's a challenge, 30 of them? Okay, and it's just okay because a red apple and a green apple count as two, okay? They're both an apple, but we're gonna mix up the colors, okay? And so, but it's kind of fun to see how many can I get into my weekly diet, okay? And you can all go buy them, but you gotta eat them too, all right? That's the trick. You gotta eat the food too. You can't just buy it and take a picture of it. But really mixing it up is important. And really when you sit down, say, how colorful is my plate? Add a lot of color. Not only is it feasting for your eyes and makes you want to eat it, it's really good for our bodies. The other thing we can do is move our bodies. We need to be moving our bodies, okay? Roughly 30 minutes a day. Now, if you're already kind of tired, you have bad knees, it's hard to move around, there's something you can still be doing, okay? Whether it's like, lifting your arms if you're sitting, maybe it's standing up and down on your toes as you're waiting for your coffee to heat in the microwave. There's all these little ways you can get it in, okay? Walking is beautiful. If you can get out and walk a little bit. And we're lucky, we have really good weather right now. So try to get out and move your body in some way. They say that sitting is the new smoking, okay? Meaning that it's really harmful for our health. But I also understand that as we age, we start slowing down a little bit. So it doesn't mean we have to stop. That's what I encourage you. It doesn't mean you have to stop. You can still move at a slower pace, okay? Do things at a slower pace. It all counts. It really all counts. Manage your stress. Now you might say, I'm retired, I don't have any more stress. I'm not running a busy medical practice, or I'm not working at the state anymore, or whatever it might be. But we sometimes do have stress. Maybe our health stresses us out because it's not where we want it to be. Maybe dealing with our children stresses us out. Maybe worrying about money stresses us out. Whatever it might be. Maybe you guys are into social media. I don't know. Some people are. Scrolling through your social media and it's like, what did they say? It makes me so mad. It's a level of stress, okay? It really is. And just realize that what we put into our body from a nutrition standpoint is a chemical stress, all right? So when you're choosing foods that have a long list of ingredients on them that you can't pronounce, that's a chemical stressor, all right? That's a type of stress on our body as well. So think about what you're putting into your body emotionally, physically, okay? Both of those things, how we're eating and how we're dealing with the environment around us. Sleep. Sleep is so important. I work with so many people that don't sleep. They just don't. And so we strive for 7 to 9 hours a day, or night, I should say. Okay, and how do you get that? Especially if you're on certain meds that don't allow you to sleep, or you just don't sleep as well as you used to. Well, limit your napping if you can, okay? Make sure you're working out and you're moving to make your body actually tired, okay? And to just try to keep a protocol. You do the same regimen every single night. If you had children, you probably did this with your kids. You gave them a bath, you read them a book, you kind of set them up for sleep, right? We have to do the same things as we age. We have to kind of keep the routine the same so that our body's like, oh, now it's time to sleep. Okay, and it's really, and do it consistently. Right? It's really important. Try to go to bed and get up at the same time, and it really helps with your sleep. Challenge your mind. I love that everyone is here. I love that ACC does these sort of programs for people, and they allow me to come in and talk to you, and you have other things going on, because that also stays connected. Those two together, challenge your mind and staying connected, really help us as we age, okay? Loneliness is really detrimental to our health. Not thinking new thoughts, not trying new things is hard on our bodies as well. And that's where our brains start, our brains are kind of lazy. They don't really want to learn new things because we have to challenge them. And that's why we develop habits, by the way, because the habits that we have, your brain's like, I like that habit. It's easy for me. I don't have to think about it. So we go back to doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so that's why habit change is so difficult, okay? Because your brain fights you on it. It's like, I got to learn something new. So you have to really challenge your brain, okay? So those are my tips for you. So what are we going to do next? I want you to realize that not all healthy eating has to be boring, okay? And this is what people say to me. It's like, oh yeah, they think of healthy eating as going on a diet or portion control or whatever it might be. Or the doctor says, I can't eat these things. Robin said I can't eat salt, sugar, or fat anymore, so what am I going to do, right? But I want you to start thinking out of the box, that there's some fun things you can do, because we all like a little sweet treat now and again, right? And so, but then again, I also want you to realize, I want you to be able to bring something with it. Every food you choose, every food that gets into your pantry and into your refrigerator should earn its spot. Everything that gets on your plate and goes into your body should earn its spot, okay? Because it should be doing something for your body. It should be fueling you in a way that helps your health, doesn't harm it. A friend of mine likes to say, she goes, you should be loving the food that loves you back, okay? So that's what I really want you to start thinking. Let's love some of the food that's gonna really help our health, okay? So what I brought for you today was something I found, it's called Snicker Bites. Now, Snickers is a type of candy bar, if you don't know, and it's, full of fat, sugar, and salt. I don't know, it probably has some salt in it. Okay, it has some peanuts, has a redeeming feature in it, has some peanuts in it. But I found this recipe and I was like, this can't be true. This can't taste like Snickers. I haven't had a Snickers bar for so long, so I'm not even sure it does. So you guys will have to tell me. But it was tasty. It really was. So what we are going to use is we're going to use dates. Now, if you haven't discovered dates, they're kind of ugly. All right, they're not very appetizing looking, but they're super sweet, super sweet, and they're full of fiber and vitamins and minerals, okay? And they're a great avenue to use for this sweet treat. I also like to soften them and grind them up and make it into a date syrup, okay? And you could actually buy it on, already made, but you could make your own. And it's a great way to sweeten your oatmeal or other things, okay? Because what I love about it is bringing some fiber with it. When you're using sugar, 0 fiber, okay? 0. It's very processed. It's not great for you. So the beautiful thing is you get that sweet sensation, but you get something with it with the dates. It also has some peanut butter in it, okay? So if you can't eat peanuts, this is not your recipe, okay? Sorry for that. But peanuts will have a little bit of protein. They taste good. I mean, it's, the one that I'm going to be using, I want you to start, so let me back up. The medjool dates, there's different types, okay? These are the medjool. They're slightly larger. These are another type. These are called the deglet. These are smaller. And the medjool are larger and they're sweeter, okay? So for this, the medjools work great because they give you a bit more of a platform to put your good stuff on it, okay? But I've done both and both work fine. So whatever you can find. And then the peanut butter. When you're choosing your peanut butter, you can grind your own. Or you can, read your labels and just make sure it just has peanuts in it, maybe a little bit of salt. So a trick is when you look at the back, when you're looking at sodium, sodium's the salt, I want you to look at the back and it'll say a serving size. So look at the serving size and look at the number of calories, okay? So you see this, in here, serving size is 2 tablespoons. The number of calories is 190. Well, then I go to the sodium, and it's 105 milligrams. So it's less than the number of calories. So that means it's pretty darn good. So typically when you start looking at things, oh, do you want me to show this, Sean?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Typically what you'll see the number of calories, and then the milligrams of sodium is super, super high. Okay, so this is a really quick trick for you to start seeing, hey, is this kind of too salty, or can I eat this? Okay, and a lot of the peanut butters you'll find, on the back they'll have added palm oil in them. Okay, or they have added sugar in them, and we want to avoid those. So it's like, you know, if I'm going to eat oil or sugar, I'm not going to eat it in my peanut butter. I'm going to eat it somewhere else. Okay, that's what I want you to start realizing it. So you start choosing where you want to add those things in, and how they get snuck in. So this particular brand, there's other brands too that really do a good job of just having the peanuts in it. And like I said, you can always grind your own. The other ingredient is sesame seeds. Sesame seeds, I love them. These tiny little things, they just bring a wallop of flavor, and they have vitamin E, and they have other nutrients in them, some protein. And so you use them in this recipe as well. But then you can also sprinkle them on your stir fries. You can put them in your oatmeal. There's a zillion ways you can use sesame seeds. Tahini, which is used in, yeah, I see you shaking your head back there. You know, yeah, tahini are actually ground up sesame seeds. Okay, and I use a lot of tahini, you can either grind your own or buy it, in salad dressings, because the natural oils in the sesame seeds actually give it your salad dressings a really rich flavor, so you don't need any oil to add in at all. You just use the tahini and then do the other seasonings that you like in it, okay? And it sticks really well to your salads. And yet you're bringing some fiber and nutrients too, versus oil doesn't have anything, okay? So these are super great. The other thing is we're going to use some chocolate chips, okay? And I love using the non-dairy ones because a lot of people have lactose issues, and so you can find these chocolate chips. Again, read your labels. Look for the ones that start with unsweetened chocolate, and it does have a little cane sugar in it. But the first ingredient is the unsweetened chocolate, so you get a little bit more of the chocolate versus the sugar, okay? And you're not going to use a ton. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you really quick. I mean, I think you can probably figure this out, but I'll do a quick demo on it, and that way you can see how simple it is. And I'm going to go ahead and use the bigger dates. Now you'll notice. Actually, I'll show you the two different types and how you can see the difference in them. The medjool dates that I had were a little bit older, and so they're a little more dried out. But that's why they'd be perfect for. See, they're not very. Can you show those, Sean? Oh yeah, they're not especially beautiful, but that's okay. They don't have to. Have you guys ever seen that ugly fruit? Sometimes they'll have, you can buy ugly fruit because it's cheaper because it's not pretty, but it tastes just as good, right? So you can see they're slightly different, right? One's a little less, but there's different in size too. So we're going to cut it in half. I'm going to use the larger one. I'm going to cut it in half like this. And these are pitted, okay? So they come with pits, so you can buy the pitted ones. It's way easier, okay? I'm going to take a little bit of my peanut butter. Get my ingredients out here ready to go. This is literally how easy it is. They say a teaspoon of peanut butter, but I just take a little dollop out of here and spread it in there. Go more or less, whatever you like. And what I have found is doing the sesame seeds first, they stick a little bit easier onto your peanut butter. You can do them after too. So wow, okay, and then we take some of the chocolate chips and put them on top. Did you ever do ants on a log with celery with peanut butter and raisins with your kids? Yeah, that was always fun. Kind of reminded me of doing that. Don't be stingy with the chocolate chips, okay? This is going to make it taste good. And you stick them on, and that's it. That's a little sweet, pop it in type thing, okay? So I'm going to cut this one in half, and I'll add it to my sample list here, my samples here that we're going to pass around. Everyone at home, sorry, you don't get to sample anything. And they got a little messed up driving here today, but I think those, If you can get past they don't look beautiful, they're going to taste delicious, okay? So that's the downside of being here on Zoom. But I'm glad you're here on Zoom because I think you learned a lot. And you can see how easy this is. You can easily do this recipe at home on your own. And then you also have your peanut butter for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You have your sesame seeds for other things. You have your dates for, you can eat them plain. You can chop them up, put them in your oatmeal, all these great things, okay? So these are ingredients that you'll use over and over again. But, so that's what I have for you today. And my parting words would be, one meal's not gonna make or break your health. Okay, so if you're going to splurge and eat something, but again, you have another meal to do better. And so start paying attention to each meal that you're doing. Okay, and how can you make it healthier for you? And really start paying attention to how do the foods I'm eating make me feel? Okay, what is my energy like after I eat certain things? Am I sleepy after I eat something? Is my stomach hurt? All of those things, because it gives you a clue on how that food is loving your body. And it might not be, okay? So really, start, and the more you can get your beans and your greens, and in fact, there's a list you can actually do. I would recommend get a serving of berries every day, okay? Like I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Try to get 3 servings of beans every day. That's like a half cup, okay? So it's not a lot. It's not a lot. And by the way, hummus is a bean, okay? It's garbanzos. You only need a quarter cup of that. And then you could eat it with, a whole grain cracker, or you could eat it with carrots, or whatever you like. Okay, so that counts as one of your servings. So 3 servings of beans, get a serving of berries, get some other fruits in. I like to try to get apples in with my peanut butter, or like right now, cherries are in season. How great are those, right? We're so fortunate where we live. Get a serving of cruciferous vegetables. Okay, what are those? Broccoli, okay, cauliflower, bok choy, some of those things. Try to get a serving of those in every day. Other greens, spinach is great, chard is great, any sort of leafy greens. And then we're really heavy on the vegetables. Add some more vegetables. You need about 2 other servings of vegetables. With my clients, I ask them to add vegetables into every meal. And they're like, breakfast too? I go, absolutely, okay? It's really easy to grate a zucchini into your oatmeal, okay? It sounds terrible, but it's really good. And you add your cinnamon and your nuts and your raisins in. It's like zucchini bread, honestly. And who doesn't like zucchini bread, right? So flax seeds, you can put those in your oatmeal. Those are super great to add into your, I like chia seeds as well. Some nuts, eat some nuts. If you need a snack, have some nuts. They're really good for you. Spices, spice up your food, okay? Use some spices, and fresh or dried, whatever you like, okay? They're so great to make your food taste good. Whole grains, like I said, whole wheat, whole grains, quinoa, brown rice, barley, all those things. Make sure you get your water in, okay? And then don't forget your exercise. Okay, so those kind of your checklist. Every day, can I get all these in? It's a lot of food. It's a lot of food, but I know you can do it. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone at home, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being patient and getting us online. And I'm so grateful to ACC to keep offering these programs for you. So do your best and make good choices at your next meal. Thanks, everyone. Bye.